Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Geothermal Workforce Development Roundtable on March 8th, 2022. My name is Rachel Carpatella. I'm the Program Director of Commercial Clean Heating and Cooling with Sustainable Westchester. Our program is supported by NYSERDA. And today we have an exciting presentation for you. Sustainable Westchester is a consortium of 45 municipalities and the county itself. And for today's agenda, we will have a half hour of presentations. First, welcome remarks from Nina Orville, the Executive Director of Sustainable Westchester, followed by Westchester County's interest in geothermal workforce development, presented by Bridget Gibbons, the Director of Economic Development with Westchester County, and then geothermal technology, industry growth, and training pathways, presented by Jeff Hammond, Executive Director of the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association. Following the presentations, we will have a guided discussion from 4 to 5 p.m. We'll start with introductions, move on to career opportunities, geothermal workforce challenges, and clean energy training pathways. Oh, we're not up to the thank you yet. I will stop sharing my screen and pass it to our first presenter, Nina Orville, Executive Director of Sustainable Westchester.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm so happy to join you today for this Geothermal Workforce Roundtable. Our commercial clean heating and cooling program is supported by NYSERDA, and I know Rachel and I want to thank Scott Smith for his and NYSERDA's invaluable support for our work over the years. We also want to thank Bridget Gibbons and Westchester County's Office of Economic Development for recognizing the growing need and opportunity for clean energy workforce development here in Westchester. We're really so glad to bring this group together today for information and collaborative information sharing and collaborative learning. Sustainable Westchester will then work with Bridget to identify opportunities that the county and Sustainable Westchester together can play for ongoing geothermal workforce development. Sustainable Westchester has been running clean heating and cooling community campaigns for several years. The demand for these clean heating and cooling services is clear, and the interest has only been growing. We hear from our contractor partners that a key constraint to meeting that demand in the community is a qualified workforce. To meet our climate goals and to create economic growth and generate opportunities for Westchester residents, we really need to address this bottleneck. So we're really pleased to have gathered leaders in the education field, organizations that do clean energy workforce training, clean energy employers, and funders who all have a key role to play in preparing the clean energy workforce that is already in demand today and that will be absolutely critical to achieving our collective goals in the coming years. So thank you all for joining this important discussion.
Thank you, Nina. Our next remarks will be from Bridget Gibbons, and I will read a brief bio. Bridget Gibbons is Westchester County Executive George Latimer's Director of Economic Development. The Office of Economic Development offers a wide range of services to help attract and retain business and talent in Westchester. The Office of Economic Development established and continues to execute on a robust economic development strategy. This consists of focusing primarily on a sector-based strategy for workforce and business development programs focused on clean energy, biosciences, advanced manufacturing, and technology. I'll turn it over to Bridget now to elaborate on the work being done in implementing the sector-based strategy.
I almost forgot to unmute myself. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much, Sustainable Westchester, for pulling together this really knowledgeable group to discuss this very important project. As Rachel mentioned, Westchester County's economic development is focused on 4 key sectors: advanced manufacturing, biotechnology, biotech, biosciences, technology, and clean energy. And why did we choose those 4 sectors? They really align well with Westchester County's highly developed workforce, highly educated workforce, and they offer well-paying jobs. So they're really well suited for Westchester County, and they're thriving in the county already. So the goal in focusing on these 4 sectors was, how can the county be helpful? How do we remove barriers?
Jason, my first time meeting Jason.
To business, there we go. How do we remove barriers to business growth? How do we help these, how can the county be helpful to really make sure that these businesses are growing? So we established a task force in the biosciences to focus on what are the challenges there, and we're working through those challenges. We established a task force in advanced manufacturing. We are focused on workforce development for our advanced manufacturers because their key issue is hiring people. And now I've turned my attention to clean energy and focusing on geothermal, because we know that the businesses here are really doing everything they can to grow and be successful. We want to have their backs and really support them as they try to grow and try to hire people. And in the brief conversations that I had with the businesses, the geothermal businesses here, I understand workforce hiring people with the appropriate skills is a big challenge. But I hope to learn more today. I'm glad to be listening in on this great discussion, because I want to understand, I'm kind of new to geothermal, I'm new to clean energy, so I admit that, but I know that you folks all have a lot of knowledge, so I'm happy to listen and learn and figure out what are the great next steps that we can take in order to help this sector grow. So thank you so much again for having me. I look forward to learning, and I look forward to getting busy executing on how we can grow our workforce and grow these businesses in Westchester. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. The businesses and people of Westchester are so lucky to have your leadership.
Oh, thank you so much.
Without further ado, Jeff Hammond is currently Executive Director at the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association, IGSHPA, a nonprofit member-driven organization established in 1987 to establish ground source heat pump technology on local, state, national, and international levels. Jeff earned a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration from the University of St. Francis in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and an AAS in Electrical Engineering Technology from Purdue University. He joins IGSHPA with 35 years experience in the ground source heat pump geothermal industry, including positions at Climate Master, Enertech, GeoFlow, and Water Furnace, some of which are on our meeting today. Jeff is a member of ASHRAE, the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, AEE, the Association of Energy Engineers, ASAE, the American Society of Association Executives, and has served on CSA, Canadian Standards Association, AHRI, the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute, and IGSHPA Technical and Advisory Committees. He is currently chair for the next edition of the ANSI CSA IGSHPA C448 Ground Source Heat Pump Standard. So he's an expert. Welcome, Jeff. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. It's really an honor to be here with Westchester County, NYSERDA, NYGO. You're all leading the rest of the country, and we certainly appreciate it. It's an exciting time in our industry. And I do have a couple of presentations. Rachel, you'd asked me to go through just sort of an introduction to geothermal for those who may not be familiar with it. I see on the line there are an awful lot of experts, so this may be very, very basic for some of you. I apologize in advance. And then we'll also talk about some of the opportunities and how that might tie into workforce development. Would you like me to share my screen, or do you have my slides up, Rachel?
Please feel free to share your screen.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll start with the introduction, if that's okay with everyone. Again, this is kind of just an overview. Some of you on the call certainly could present this with expertise. I'll talk a little bit about the technology itself. I noticed in the chat there was a question about geothermal and ground source. So we do want to be clear on what we're talking about. What is a geothermal heat pump, a ground loop, and a little bit about operating costs and economics. So first off is technology. I think most people think of geothermal as hot rocks or a geyser, think something like that. And that is true. It's energy from the internal heat of the earth. In fact, it's been used to produce electricity since the 1960s in North America. But that's the really hot, high temperature, hot rock type geothermal. What we're talking about today, we call low temperature geothermal. And some people call this ground source heat pumps. It's also referred to as geo-exchange, but the most popular term really is geothermal. And it's just simply the transfer from the ground, energy to and from the ground. So we're using a constant source to heat, cool, and make domestic hot water. The biggest advantage really is just the temperature of the earth itself. I live in the St. Louis area. And so the average temperatures, this purple line right here, in fact, we're seeing some cold temperatures today in the 30s, but we have to live with this fairly large curve just simply because, you know, that's the temperature of the air. So that's our, you know, going to be our challenge when we're conditioning the space. This red line, this is about 12 foot deep in the earth. And so it's really a simple concept when it comes to taking energy that is at a constant temperature. We're not working with this peak here. We're working with the red line, which is the 12-foot depth. But even if you look at 5 foot, this blue line right here, even when you're down 5 foot below grade, we still have a pretty constant temperature to work with. So there's not really any magic to geothermal or ground source heat pumps. This system's just working less hard. And that's really where we see the benefits. It's not new. It has had a lot of different trends over the years. The first patent was in 1912 in Switzerland. It's been used in open loop or well water systems really since the early 1900s, 1930s. Edison Electric Institute sponsored some research back in the 40s and 50s, but we really didn't have material that was suitable to be buried. So it wasn't until the 70s when the Swedish came up with systems made from the types of plastic that we're using today. We want to make sure that if we're going to bury something in the ground, we'd like for it to stay for a long period of time. And it has to be reliable. It can't leak, those kind of things. So it may seem like new technology, but it's really not. Our obstacles have simply been, you know, what do we want to bury in the ground that will stay there for quite some time? The heat pump itself, again, is not really anything magic. As I mentioned earlier, a heat pump is a heat pump is a heat pump. But the big difference between a ground source heat pump or a geothermal heat pump is, as opposed to an air source heat pump, we're working with the ground. So we're simply moving heat around. We're not creating heat. And that's the big difference with heat pump technology. The fossil fuel system is creating heat, and it's never 100% efficient. Whereas by moving heat, our efficiency is much, much higher. This is a drawing I like to use to show how simple the technology really is. We're all familiar with an outside air conditioning unit. And if we take this unit and we replace the air coil with a water to refrigerant heat exchanger, we move the compressor indoors, we replace the fan with a pump, we have a geothermal heat pump. So the beauty of it is it's all the same components that you're used to, but it's simpler. In fact, most geothermal heat pumps have less components than a typical air source heat pump or an air conditioner. So all we're doing is taking everything inside. The system works much less hard. That's going to help with its longevity, but it's also not working with extreme temperatures. That helps with efficiencies. And so now we take the pump connected to the ground loop and to the heat pump, and we're ready to go. This is a typical residential system. This might be in a basement or a mechanical room. You have the heat pump itself. A lot of systems have small pumps that provide some domestic hot water heating. There's some sort of pump This one happens to be a flow center that pumps fluid from the ground loop to the heat pump through this hose kit. In most cases, at least on residential, we'll have an electric water heater that is connected so that we can make some domestic hot water with the heat pump as well. On commercial systems, it's similar, but typically we have pumps that might be centrally located. This type of unit may be in a little bit different shape, but it's the same concept. It's a package unit for the most part, connected to a ground loop. There are lots of different types of geothermal heat pumps. The one that was in the previous picture is the most popular for residential, a vertical system, everything in one box. Commercially, you typically see a horizontal unit. This might be above the ceiling on a commercial type installation. But we can also heat water or chill water with water to water units. This is great for making potable water, for radiant floor heating, for chilled water on commercial applications. So a lot of different choices for heat pumps. It is a simple system, really, being that everything is inside the box. We're able to look at the quality of the system by having everything factory manufactured. So there's really no field installation of any of these refrigeration components. They're all installed at the factory, tested, and shipped. You don't have a line set like you might with a conventional air conditioner or air source heat pump. That helps with longevity again, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of the system. So now we've talked about the technology itself, the heat pump. How do we tie that into the ground loop? Because the ground loop tends to be the most challenging part for most people. It's actually very simple, but the excavation is not so simple, and the drilling is not so simple. So the concept itself is something we can talk about. The ground loop is really an enormous solar collector. You saw from the earlier charts, the ground is a very, very steady temperature when we get down deep enough. And so what we're doing is we're taking what we call the loop. It's polyethylene pipe that's buried, and it has a heat transfer solution. It's usually water and antifreeze circulating through the piping. Piping itself is high density polyethylene, very similar to what you see with the gas piping. That's a medium density. It's typically yellow or orange. Ours is black. It's very, very similar type material. The difference is, we're not using anything that's flammable or highly pressurized. It's just a water and antifreeze solution that's flowing through that pipe. So we're using what's buried in the ground then as our heat source and heat sink. So we're looking at a very mild temperature to pull heat from the ground in the wintertime and to reject heat to the ground in the summertime. These are residential pictures, but it's very similar for commercial. We have different types of loop. This one would be what we call a vertical loop, where we have piping from the home or the building connected to multiple vertical bores. So these are similar to what you would have for a well, but rather than a well where we're looking for water, this is just a bore, and it's grouted so that we seal up any aquifers that we've disturbed, and we have good heat transfer between the pipe and the ground itself. This could be a lot of different configurations. It may be from anywhere from one bore to hundreds or thousands of bores, depending upon the size. And these could be 80, 100 foot deep, all the way into the 300, 400, 500 foot deep. So it's very, very flexible depending upon the size. In New York, of course, there's some urban density. So you may see fewer, deeper holes. In rural areas, you might see more shallower holes. It's more of an economic choice than anything else. Also in rural areas, you may see horizontal type loops where this could be, hundreds of feet out into larger areas, buried typically in the 5 to 8 foot range. But that it doesn't require drilling, but it does require an awful lot of land space. So there isn't any one magic answer here. It's just a matter of space that's available. We see pond loops. These are great on commercial applications where you have a parking lot, for example. In most cases, you have to have a pond for runoff, and that's a great source of heating and cooling. Still a closed loop, so we still have that same piping in the bottom of the pond. We're not using pond water. We'd like to not have fish through our heat exchanger, but it's still a closed loop, and it's taking advantage of that steady temperature. There are also open systems or well water systems where we pull water from an aquifer, run it through the heat pump, and it may be discharged into a pond, lake, or in some cases a reinjection well. That really depends upon local code as to how that is reinjected. So as far as the economics and cost, based upon a lot of research and a statement from the Environmental Protection Agency, really this technology is the most energy efficient. It's environmentally clean. It's cost effective. It's really the best system out there from an economic standpoint. If you look at pricing, our challenge really is the ground loop, not because the cost is too much, but simply because of the amount of work that's needed. If you look at the heat pump, it's about the same price as a furnace or air conditioner. So the ground loop is our additional expense, but it becomes part of the property. Once that ground loop is installed, it's going to last longer than the building typically. We know it's expected to last in the hundreds of years. In fact, if it's buried in landfills, polyethylene lasts for incredibly long time. It doesn't degrade. So that's one of the advantages of using it in a ground loop. We don't want it to degrade. In a landfill, it's a problem, but in a ground loop, it's actually an advantage to have something that lasts for quite some time. It's also considered a renewable resource by the U.S. government. So when you look at all these different aspects of the technology, it's really a matter of the mild temperature source, the fact that everything's indoors, that makes this a good technology from an efficiency standpoint and from a long life standpoint. That's just a quick overview of the technology itself. I have a few more slides on the actual overview and workforce development and so forth. Any questions on the technology itself before we move on? Okay. All right. Okay, these are some industry growth projections, and we will tie into our workforce development here. I want to talk about the projections themselves, some associated career opportunities, as well as training pathways. We'll talk about the projections first. If you haven't seen DOE's GeoVision report that was put out a couple of years ago, this is a great source for information on the growth of the geothermal industry. The potential to increase from 2 million to 28 million homes by 2050 is a pretty big increase in adoption of this technology. So that's, and I know New York certainly is hoping for those types of increases as well. With decarbonization and beneficial electrification, geothermal is just a nice fit for fitting into these goals. It's really a job creator, and we'll talk more about that later, because this is something that can't be exported, has to be done locally, and it's also a technology that provides infrastructure. So as we create more and more systems, we're creating infrastructure, we're creating jobs. Really, our barrier right now is lack of awareness and understanding of this technology. Part of it's our own fault. I mentioned all of our different names: ground source, geo-exchange, geothermal, but it's also just a matter of the fact that it's a fairly small part of the industry right now. So as we start to talk about it more and more, some of that barrier will certainly go away. This report mentions that the tax credits can help increase deployment, and we have seen that. We still have the federal tax credit, but we also have a lot of local incentives, and that can really help deployment of it. It's sustainable as is. If there weren't any tax credits, it's still a good deal, but tax credits do speed up that deployment. If we hit our goals, deployment provides a lot of societal and environmental benefits, by increasing energy efficiency and improving demand side management. A big benefit on the demand side management is the fact that an electric technology that lowers the peak requirements for the grid is going to help with the implementation of beneficial electrification type technologies and help with decarbonization. Some of the projections, and this is based upon the Geothermal Exchange Organization, GEO, that were expected relatively modest growth in 2022. GEO is expecting about a 12% growth of the industry. We're happy to have the growth, but it's a bit modest for now. We're expecting subsequent years to be quite a bit larger percentages, and that's due to some of the things I mentioned earlier: increased awareness, trends towards carbon reduction and beneficial electrification, and the demand reduction potential for utilities. That's really going to have a big impact. You know, we can certainly switch to electric technologies, but there is a cost. And so if we can lower that demand, we're lessening the grid requirements and infrastructure building by having technology that has a lower peak demand. The tax credits, GEO expects that they will be extended. We've been a little bit in limbo at this point with Build Back Better. But GEO thinks that we have good chances of extending those in the future. Some of the associated career opportunities with geothermal, there's quite a large impact here on an increasing need for drillers, excavation operators, installation technicians, really the skilled trades. And it's really tough right now. I've talked to a lot of contractors, just getting these people. So not only is it exciting that the technology is increasing, but it's also a challenge because we need additional workers. The good thing about that is there's opportunity for a lot of job creation because we're going to need it. Just some of the examples here, I've listed bullet points, and this is similar to what is listed in the DOE job classifications, but I've broken them out into a little bit more digestible job titles. Some of them are a little bit hard to understand the way it's presented in the DOE job classifications. So if you just look at typical jobs, you can see there's quite a number of items here, bullets that show what we're going to need. And there is opportunity for lots of different levels of jobs, from a graduate engineer type job to skilled trades, grouters, maintenance technicians, operating technicians, pipe layout technicians. So it's quite a variety from super skilled to lower skilled jobs. District loop systems will also have an impact, and in larger, denser urban areas, we'll likely see district systems becoming very popular. Multiple buildings or houses may be tied into the same ground loop. So that'll create a little bit different set of jobs. Fusion technicians for sure, where we join the piping together, tie-in technicians, inside piping, and so forth. So we could list a whole lot of those. Training is going to be important to getting to those jobs. And these are the current IGSPA courses. We're working on updating all of these courses, but right now the offering is an accredited installer. That's more of a residential light commercial type contractor training. And those are offered now in New York. NYGO is involved in a lot of these, as is some of the community colleges. We have a certified residential designer, which sort of ties into this. This would be more for a person who is designing the system on residential jobs. The certified geo-exchange designer, that's a commercial designer. That's more of an engineer focused type training. Those who are designing commercial systems would benefit from that training. We're going to need inspectors because of all the systems that are going in to make sure they're done correctly. So the geothermal inspector course is residential and commercial. Then we have a train the trainer, because that's the other thing that we need. Not only is the technology growing and the need for training growing, but also we need more trainers. We just completed a train the trainer in February for one of the the residential courses, but that's something that IGSPA will be conducting more to bring trainers into the focus. What's in the works, hopefully it will help concentrate on workforce development because we're looking at more specific job categories. Although the IGSPA courses, some of them have been around for quite some time, accredited installer since the 90s, we now need a more modular approach. So what you'll see from IGSPA are smaller bites, service tech, for example, install tech, a designer, and other modules, so that you really will only have to take that particular course that pertains to your job. Really doesn't make a lot of sense to go through an entire course when you're never going to see some of these particular skill sets. So it will help us train faster. It's going to be specific to that job, and it'll be lower cost, which is important as well. We're also reviewing the inspector course for the same reason. There are different levels of inspectors. There might be more of a commissioning agent versus a code inspector, for example. The commercial designer course, same thing. There's a lot of interest in commercial, and I don't always need that certification. So if you're just looking at it from an informational standpoint, we'll have courses that are more informational and others that are more certification oriented. We're working right now on state CEUs. So those who are licensed will be able to get continuing education credits from IGSPA courses, and a lot more. There's a lot going on with training right now. It's an important focus, and always has been with IGSPA, but right now it's even more important. And those are the slides I have. I certainly appreciate the time, and I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Jeff. For the next part of our roundtable, we are going to each introduce ourselves, and then we will have a guided discussion. To start the introductions, I have put a list in the chat. So if everyone can please direct your attention to the chat. And but before we start with the list in the chat, I'd like for NYSERDA to introduce themselves. Scott Smith. And if you don't see your name in the chat yet, I will continue. I'm not done with the list yet, so I'm going to continue to put the list in there. Okay, go ahead, Scott. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Rachel. I've got some background noise. Sorry, my dog is barking. But good to see everybody. Thanks for joining. And Rachel and Nina, thanks for hosting.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you so much. If everyone could say their name, their organization, and one sentence about your role in clean energy workforce development. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm Tara Seeley, Senior Program Officer at Westchester Community Foundation. I manage our workforce development portfolio, and we are very interested in workforce development opportunities that put people on a path to middle income wages. We also are very interested in the environment. We have a strong environment portfolio. So you bring together both sides of those interests for us today, and we're happy to be here.
Okay, it looks like next is Joe Parsons, then Allison Trudeau.
Hi, I'm Joe Parsons. I'm the Senior Product Manager for Climate Master. We're a geothermal manufacturer. We have a significant interest in growing the market, obviously, as a manufacturer, and firmly believe that growing the installation infrastructure is a vital part of that. So we're contributing as best we can through training programs, education of the consumer, and also educating contractors with a business opportunity for geothermal installation.
Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Trudeau. Sorry, I'm traveling right now, so I can't be part of the Zoom, but I'm the coordinator of adult education at Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, and we are very eager to dip into the training aspect of this. So I'm here just to take it all in.
Thanks so much for being here. Antoine Cannon, then Aurora Zom. Antoine, you might be muted. Okay, we'll circle back to him. Aurora.
Hi, my name is Aurora Zom. I work with the Westchester County Association as an administrative assistant, and I help fill in different roles. So some of our efforts are environmentally oriented, and I help out there.
Thank you. Brian Amcroud.
Hi, Brian Amcroud. I'm a vice president for workforce credentialing at Mercy College, and we're very interested in getting involved in broader sustainability efforts, both in terms of general community education and awareness on the opportunities in this space, and specifically in terms of developing or working with you on existing credentials for workforce upskilling, especially in some of the advanced areas where there could potentially be pathways towards higher degrees.
Wonderful, glad to have you. Charles Mcginnis.
Yep. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Charles Mcginnis, the Assistant Dean for Workforce Development at Westchester Community College. I'm involved with several clean energy initiatives, including several grants with statewide consortiums and other partner collaborations here in Westchester County and the Lower Hudson Valley. And we're also interested in getting involved in any way we can and helping out.
Okay, following the list in the chat, we have Christopher Brockmeyer, then Colbert Moore.
Good afternoon, Christopher Brockmeyer. I serve on the planning board in North Salem, New York, and also serve on the Climate Smart Community group that is in the process of reaching out and figuring out how to reach out to the residents of North Salem to introduce geothermal and solar to them. I think my angle in being here is somewhat different than many of the experts and practitioners who know far more than I do, but it's essential that we engage more with our community here to explain to them how to offer these opportunities to them.
Hi, everybody. Colbert Moore. I work for St. Catherine Group in Portchester. We are a developer in Portchester, affordable housing developer and workforce, and I wanted to come here and expose myself as much as I could to elements that we could incorporate into our projects moving forward with geothermal. So I'm very excited to hear kind of all the insights and ways I can ask questions and pin stuff around, making this most worthwhile for our projects moving on as well. So good to meet everyone.
Great to meet you. Craig Hart, then Christina, then Dan Singer. Craig Hart, if you're introducing yourself, you might be on mute.
Hi, everyone. So I'm the executive director of the Pace Energy and Climate Center, and we work on geothermal issues primarily with NYSERDA grants. We're working with Endurance, and we're interested in workforce development to see that this can become a beneficial part of the economy, as well as help ramp up the decarbonization the state needs to undertake.
Hi, Christina Pastrana here. I work for Energy EDC. I am the Career Services Manager. And my role is to focus on placements, actually. But I'm one of 4 or 5 partner organizations that work on the Wildan Clean Energy Academy. And so we, a big part, we work on outreach and getting individuals into our training, and we give a lot of different trainings in the green economy, electrical, thermal, for example, clean heat. We're expanding our training, but that's not what I work on. I actually work on the other side. So once the individuals get trained, we provide other hands-on opportunities, and then place them with our partner organizations and employers such as Wildan, but there's many others. So this is very exciting to just another area to grow into. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Christina. Dan Singer, then Diana Williams, and then Emily O.
Hi, my name is Dan Singer. I'm the president and CEO of Robeson Energy. In the past few years and have been investing quite a bit in our an internship program and apprenticeship program to train new people to get into the field of clean energy. We recently announced a partnership with Dandelion Geothermal to expand into the Westchester, into the Westchester market and expand and explore the opportunities for retrofitting residential, but also are doubling down on our budget to hire, train new workforce to invest in the multifamily housing market in Westchester. So if anybody, it sounds like a lot of people are looking to train and place people. We are looking for trainees and people to be placed. And it's a tremendous part of our growth strategy for the future.
I'm Diana Williams. I am the project manager of Adopt Clean Energy, which is a NYSERDA clean heating and cooling campaign. And we serve the cities of Mount Vernon and New Rochelle. Our training mission has been to provide training for the unemployed or underemployed individuals in Mount Vernon and New Rochelle. We have done some air source heat pump training, but we're looking at the possibility of getting some training for ground source heat pump for these individuals. And so I'm happy to be here and learn more about the opportunities that exist.
So glad you're here, Diana.
Thank you.
Jeanne?
Good afternoon. My name is Jeanne Teresta. I'm an engineer physicist, retired professor from NYU School of Engineering. Right now I do a lot of consulting and teaching classes in the area of engineering challenges of climate change for professional engineers. So I'm here to listen and learn, but I have some very challenging questions. So thank you.
Thanks. Gibson Craig, then Jared Rodriguez.
So I'm Gibson Craig, Director of Pre-Construction for WBP Development and Griffin Construction. We're a Westchester-based developer and builder. Currently installing a 45 well loop field in Terrytown under a multifamily building. And, we're thinking about this on future projects as well. That's also some experience with single family. I'm part of Climate Smart Communities with Pleasantville. I just started with them a couple weeks ago. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. Jared Rodriguez.
Hey, how are you? Jared Rodriguez. I am the principal and founder of Emergent Urban Concepts. I have a background in commercial real estate, engineering, planning, sustainability, energy conservation in New York. I was involved in the development of Local Law 97 or the Climate Mobilization Act, and currently I advise NYSERDA on programs like the Empire Building Challenge, as well as decarbonization efforts and transition of gas utilities, hopefully to thermal utilities, which we might see happen this summer. So I'm excited to potentially talk about that.
Great, thanks, Jared. Next, John Rath from NYGEO. JR?
Hi, Rachel and everyone else. John Rath. I'm Director of Operations with New York Geothermal Energy Organization, or New York Geo. Workforce development is one of my focuses, along with thinking things like being a party on rate cases, trying to influence some legislative things, and some administrative duties. Glad to be on.
Glad to have you. Khalid?
Hi, Rachel, everyone. Good to see you again. My name is Khalid Youssef. I'm the founder of a small energy consulting firm in New York State. Pyramid Energy Engineering Services. I'm located about 4 miles from NYSERDA, and I do energy audits, commissioning, and design reviews. And what I focus on in the renewable heating and cooling climate is to ensure proper design reviews are done, system sizing, system balancing, controls integration, commissioning, and proper metering of the equipment. So whatever we put out in terms of renewable heating and cooling systems and progressive technologies basically meet the expectations. And I also do a lot of troubleshooting for systems that did not behave as intended, and I issue lessons learned. I have a series right now of in-depth commissioning training for all systems in terms of renewable heating and cooling and other conventional technologies for both PEs and non-PEs alike. So I'm happy to be part of this, and I'm happy to weigh in whenever needed. Thank you.
Excellent. Kyle K.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me today. My name's Kyle Corman. I'm with Mitsubishi Electric Train. I'm the commercial area manager for the upstate New York region, but my involvement and influence does reach down into the Westchester area. My primary role is to educate the marketplace, particularly architects, engineers, contractors, on heat pump technology and VRF technology. A lot of times that involves air source products as well as water source products. And some of the water source products I've worked on do tie into geothermal type applications. So while I'm not an expert on geothermal, and I can't claim to be one, I have seen some projects. I'm here to learn more about how we can integrate our products into geothermal loops and help educate the marketplace on heat pump technology as well. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Marilyn Moore with NYSERDA. Sorry we didn't get you earlier with the NYSERDA intros. Marilyn.
That's no worries. Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm Marilyn Moore. Nice to see everybody. I am part of the Clean Heating and Cooling team. I work with Scott Smith to support the Clean Heating and Cooling community campaigns. And I also help to support our workforce development initiatives. Nice to be here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marilyn. Thanks for everything you do to help make these programs happen. Nick Defalco. Then Peter Mccart.
Hi, Nick Defalco. I work for Sabre Real Estate Advisors in the acquisitions and development lead for the company. Myself and principal of the company, Martin Berger, are very active in White Plains and in the Poughkeepsie area as a master developer for transformative site up there called Hudson Heritage. Here to learn, looking to better understand the options and availability of clean heat technologies and offerings that are out there and will be coming available to be utilized on both residential, retail, and commercial retail and residential developments.
Hello, I'm Peter Mccart. I'm the Director of Energy Conservation and Sustainability for Westchester County, working at the behest of our most wonderful county executive, George Latimer. I also sit on I'm a founding board member of Sustainable Westchester, and I'm obviously doing anything and everything I can to electrify not only our buildings, but our facilities, as well as our fleets.
Thank you, Peter, for everything that you've done to create and support Sustainable Westchester. Stephen H. and then Teresita Wiesel.
If that was Stephen Hall?
Yes.
All right. Great to see such a great collection of people who are interested in energy efficiency. Something I've been trying to push in a 40-year career in project management, real estate projects. I've focused on energy efficiency. I am now semi-retired, but still acting as a strategic energy consultant to owners and developers. Recently in Connecticut, I worked for a large developer of a large building, and we found them $400,000 in incentives by the Connecticut Energize program. And I've been working a little bit in New York with some of the developers here, and I'm very anxious to learn more and work more here too.
Teresita.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Terry Wiesel. I'm Vice President for Workforce Development at Westchester Community College, and really pleased to be part of the conversation and offer our assistance and training opportunities. I'm excited that some partners are here because the notion of collaborative curriculum development is really attractive to me as we try to reach as many individuals as possible with opportunities for employment. Thanks, Rachel.
Yes. Tom Kelly, then Tony Amos.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Kelly. I'm the Senior Energy Manager for Purchase College, and the college is very much interested in the workforce development and training aspects of this. And we're also in the midst of updating our climate action plan to advance the state's goals as far as decarbonization is concerned, and just interested in learning and participating and being involved in this process.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tony Amos, Senior Vice President of Endurance Energy. We've been installing geothermal systems for the last 20 years, initially in the UK, and we're currently based in New York, Chicago, and California, trying to install energy as a service type solutions into all shapes and sizes of buildings, schools, multi-family dwellings across New York State at the moment.
Hi, Tracy Rassicott, Director of Adult and Community Services at Southern Westchester BOCES. We offer trades programs in electricity, plumbing, welding, and HVAC. Those classes are currently almost all operating at full capacity. And we do ground pump installation introduction into our HVAC programs right now. So very interested in how we move forward and contribute.
Daniel Bonnet.
Hi, good afternoon. Daniel Bonet from Westchester Community Opportunity Programs, aka WestCOP. We currently partner and run clean heat systems, air source heat pumps training in partnership with Willdan, Soulful Synergy, Energy EDC, and other workforce development training opportunities, as well as workforce preparation and workforce placement and securing employment.
Robert Ivory.
Hi, everybody. Rob Ivory. I retired from MDRC a few years ago. It's a national social policy nonprofit, and I'm also volunteering at Groundwork. And at MDRC, I'm still consulting on a new national demonstration we're developing to create career pathway programs for students in grades 9 through 14 to enter jobs in the green economy. And we're very interested in the geothermal aspect of this. So the presentation was very interesting. And it's good to see some of my friends from Westchester Community College.
Antoine Cannon, just circling back. Antoine.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry about that. I guess you missed me the first pass. Antoine Cannon, excited to be here with you all. I am the Director of Talent Development and Innovation with a company named Willdan Energy Solutions. The numerous things that we do that sort of complement today's conversation include Willdan actually manages the clean heat program in the Con Edison territory for both small and medium businesses as well as multifamily buildings. So any of you that have projects that you're trying to implement, be happy to connect you with our team members that process those and provide what turn out to be very substantial incentives. And then we also have recently launched a Clean Energy Academy in partnership with some of the great folks we just heard from here today, including WestCOP and Energy EDC. And our most recent training that we just launched last month specifically targets the clean heat sector and is more on the air source side rather than the ground source side. But as many of you are aware, and there's NYSERDA representatives on the call, NYSERDA has a lot of great workforce initiatives and funding mechanisms, and we'd love to talk with some of you about going for some funding for ground source training.
Exciting. And last but not least, we have two of our clean energy interns from Sustainable Westchester, Yasmin and then Nell.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yasmin Najjar, the Climate and Environmental Justice Associate for Sustainable Westchester. I support critical work at Sustainable Westchester focused on accelerating equitable access to our clean energy programs and initiatives. I am interested in understanding how individuals in NYSERDA designated disadvantaged communities and environmental justice areas will be incorporated in this geothermal workforce development. Glad to meet everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nell Bowen, and I am working as a clean energy intern, like Rachel said. I'm actually working under Rachel as a commercial clean heating and cooling associate, where I help her connect people with clean heating and cooling.
Okay, is there anyone? I see Peso Chapin. I possibly might have missed Peso Chapin or might have joined at some point. And anyone else, if you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself, please feel free to introduce yourself via the chat, because at this point we have a half hour left and I'd like to use that half hour for our discussion. If everyone can, okay, so sorry, Jason Chapin. So Jason Chapin and everyone else at that point, if we missed you, you can introduce yourself via chat. And also if you introduce yourself on the video, please feel free to drop your contact information in the chat so that folks can reach out to you if they have an interest in partnering with you or connecting with you about workforce development. So Jason, please go ahead and then we'll go into our discussion. Jason Chapin. Okay, so to kick us off, I thought that we could start with career opportunities. We do have some geothermal contractors, solution providers on the line today, and I thought that we could start by hearing from them about how their what their business needs are, if they're hiring, what kind of roles they are looking to fill.
I'll take a crack at that if you want, Rachel.
Sure.
So as I said earlier, and a lot of this would be repetitive what I said about us introducing myself. We are really focusing now. We've been installing air source heat pumps for the last several years, and really focusing our efforts now in a partnership with Dandelion on installing geothermal systems. We've been around for over 100 years, and we have a lot of technicians that have been working on HVAC systems for a long time. We have right now, like a lot of people have an aging workforce, a lot of really qualified technicians who are looking to already circle dates on the calendar for when they'll be retiring. And we're really trying to transfer a lot of that knowledge into into an apprenticeship program to get new people and fresh bodies into this workforce. In addition to that, all of our efforts focusing now on new construction, multifamily homes, mid-size type construction. We're looking to deploy crews with again with training. So the need is apparent, the demand is there. We really feel positioned well in the market to kind of help continue the transition of Westchester to green and clean energy. Really one of the only missing pieces. People talk a lot about supply chain issues, but our biggest concern around the supply chain is the supply of labor, more so than even the supply of the material.
And that's exactly why we're here to talk about this today. JR, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the gaps in labor in workforce that you've heard about from NYGEO members?
Sure, happy to. Over the course of a number of months, I've been listening a lot to our members talk about what it's going to take to get our industry moving forward. there's a pretty strong consensus that there's a bottleneck in the drilling profession. And that leads to some sub-issues such as trained people and a lengthy training time that's required to take a relative beginner, newcomer, and make them comfortable getting on your rig and driving out to do a job. There's the issue of commensurate pay with that. And if you look at the industry right now, the drilling industry doesn't have any Amazons or Googles. We've got a lot of small entrepreneurs with maybe limited capital money for new rigs, which are pretty expensive. And so that also becomes a financial issue in terms of that workforce. Whether or not we have the capacity internal to New York State, or whether the growth of our industry is going to require people coming from out of state is kind of a unsettled discussion at this time. I hear from other people, Jeff may be able to comment more, that we have a pretty attractive environment for people coming in from out of state, but maybe we'd rather grow our own internally. So that's a little bit from the drilling standpoint. Apprenticeships at this point seem to be not enough to get us to that point of being able to get on the rig and go out and do a job. Also the financial incentives as well. And then we have other discussions about equipment, for example, whether or not the current geo equipment is suited to a massive scale up of the industry, or whether what some people call hybrid equipment might be something that in the near future could help us bridge that gap. But I guess I'll stop there, Rachel, and let other people talk a little bit.
That's great. Thanks, JR. Does anyone want to build upon what JR was just talking about? If not, we can talk a little bit about those training pathways. Maybe we could hear from from Christina or Antoine a little bit more about some of the trainings that they've already done. And
so I'm sorry, Rachel, it was about the training pathways and the types of trainings already going on. That's what the question is?
Right. I think that might be of interest to, you know, I know Tracy at BOCES, you had mentioned that you have a introduction to ground source heat pumps, but maybe there's an opportunity to build that out. So maybe we could hear a little bit about trainings on geothermal beyond just an introduction.
Well, I certainly couldn't speak to the geothermal side, but I could speak as the program administrator. I could speak to the pain points and the gaps that I'm seeing in the market, and could also share a bit about what we've put together in response to some of that, right? But as with many technologies in the clean energy space, right, the main market driver for these, besides the policy initiatives and the mandates, are certainly the incentive programs that are out there that are helping grease the wheels and bring down the initial cost for customers. The Clean Heat program is a very rich program, right, as far as budget and as far as the amounts of incentives that are being granted per project, right? I've never seen so many six-figure checks get cut, right? It's very exciting, frankly. I'll share that the Clean Heat program, at least in the small and medium business sector, is substantially oversubscribed. I launched the HVAC program for Con Edison in 2018, and it was like trickle, 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 right? And Clean Heat, on the other hand, launched in 2021, or we took it over from NYSERDA, and has just been a hockey stick. Our goals doubled from last year to this year, from about 12,000 MMBTUs to about, from 13,000 MMBTU to maybe about 26,000 MMBTU per year. And we're on track to do upwards of 75,000 MMBTU. So just way, way oversubscribed. But I'll tell you that for all of the enthusiasm and all the attention and momentum, there is still a lot of challenges. And I would say maybe the largest one of which is load calculations, right? As opposed to other programs where you can get by just using, custom calculators, spec sheets, RE certificates. This program requires either manual J or ASHRAE 183 level calculations. And that has been a big challenge for the industry, right? Because the contractors that do the work aren't always the engineering firms that do the calculations. And these calculations do require some upfront investment, which folks are sometimes reticent to invest until they know the project is secure. But they need to know the incentives before they know if the project is secure. So it ends up being this catch-22. So
well, in Westchester, we have but we do have the free screening for clean heating and cooling for large buildings, which applies to every building over 10,000 square feet. So that mechanism is in place so that property owners can decide whether it would be worthwhile for them to make that investment for Westchester.
Yeah, I've caught wind of that. I'd love to hear more. Right. What I know is, we can give folks kind of back of the envelope, estimates, but to give folks accurate, letters of intent, the calculations do have to be done, and they're a bit more rigorous than typical screenings or initial surveys. So I'll share that the training that we've put together has really been targeted, that need, right, to train folks on how to do load calculations, right, as well as how to navigate the statewide program manual, right? There's a very sort of detailed and specific clean heat manual that contractors and market partners have to know how to navigate in order to implement projects. And yeah, it's teaching a whole new industry, a whole new set of vocabulary and new set of paperwork that folks aren't always thrilled to do. So I found that a lot of contractors are eager to engage with individuals that are familiar with the paperwork, familiar with the manuals, with the standards, the calculations, so that they can continue to drive business. Interestingly and ironically, literally while I started on this call, the reason I didn't pick up the first time is because a contractor just called me to vent to me about that exact issue. I have a project and I don't know how to do the paperwork, and need somebody to help me do that. Yeah, you couldn't make this stuff up. It literally just happened 30 minutes ago.
Yeah,
so,
I know what you mean.
That's a common issue I'm seeing. I'd love to hear if that's a pain point that others in the room are experiencing. But yeah, I feel like we have, folks, like many of the folks in this room, that know how to do the technology, know how to do the designs, know how to get the projects built. It's just the nuance of navigating these utility programs that, I'm not sure if Con Ed's on the line, right, earmuffs, but sometimes are a little bit cumbersome, right? So yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. But yeah, that's been our perspective and experience.
I'm giving a moment to see if anyone else wants to build upon those pain points, but I do think that it might be interesting to hear a little bit more about, I'm hearing that we might not even have the trainers to train on geothermal in Westchester, right? And so some of the training organizations on clean energy workforce development that are in the room are saying we do a lot on air source heat pumps. So maybe Jeff could speak a little bit more about the Train the Trainer program from the International Ground Source Heat Pump Association.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Yeah, our process for Train the Trainer is we have 2 accredited installer trainers already as part of the Train the Trainer, and then individuals who have passed that course are eligible to become trainers once they go through the Train the Trainer. Once that's completed, then their first course gets audited to make sure that they've picked up the necessary tips and they understand the material. Once that audit is complete, then they can become a trainer. So that's something that we sort of customize depending upon the area, the individuals. But we do have quite a few individuals who have completed the courses who may not be trainers, so we can pull from that pool if they're interested in becoming trainers.
Yeah, Rachel, and here at Southern Westchester BOCES, as I said, we do skilled trades training. So I've consulted quite a bit with our HVAC instructors, and they're very certain that all of the skills that they are teaching in the HVAC program are directly applicable. And this would be an extension of what we're already doing. So, if there's anything else that, we could do to be adding this onto the HVAC training, we'd be looking to do that, because we would be looking at the installation and not the design and the calculations, but straight up insulation. We have both plumbing, electricity, HVAC, and welding classes that we could do this with.
So is there an opportunity to get those students who are learning those skills certified as geothermal installers?
Yeah, I think that would be a natural extension of what we're doing. Yeah.
Can anyone speak to what that process would look like? Jeff?
Sure, we're always looking for partners, especially community colleges and trade organizations. So, that's something that would love to have more discussions about. We are restarting our training committee. The first meeting is actually next week, and that's where we're going to be spending a lot of time on these new modules, as you mentioned, like an installer type module or a service tech module. So timing is perfect. We would love any input, especially from practitioners who are already doing it and see the challenges. We would love to work with you.
Great. I'm so glad that connection is being made. I'm thinking to the training that you offered at Farmingdale State College. There. So can you talk about that? Because that's not a program that necessarily was like offered on an ongoing basis. It was a concentrated 2 or 3 day training, right? Visiting to a college. So we have some universities on the line, like I'm thinking Purchase and Pace, that might be applicable to those facilities. And I'm not sure Westchester Community College, where you would fall into, if it would be more of an installer skilled trade training, or if it would be like a visiting 2 or 3 day program for designers and engineers.
That would depend, Rachel. We do customized contract training and, go from short-term credentials right through to an associate's degree in energy systems. And so I don't have faculty on this call, but that's something that, I think it could be, it's not either or. I think it could be and both where appropriate and not redundant.
Great.
Rachel, I just want to pop in from Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES that very similar to Southern, our adult programs, but also our high school programs in our HVAC program is completely full. They actually have to turn away students, and that's a 3-session day, and each session is full. So there's a lot of opportunity for those students.
That is amazing. Robert, Ivory, are you still on the line?
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, I just had a chance to open up that article that Rachel Rosen authored about high school clean energy trainings. Do you want to talk a little bit about that opportunity?
Yeah, it's not specific to geothermal. It really encompasses the broader green economy, but
the
we
role.
are at MDRC, which is a national education and social policy nonprofit. We're in the early stages of designing a career pathway initiative for encompassing grades 9 through 14, kind of a PTAC type model that would be aimed at the green economy. And there's also another major purpose of this is to create a more diverse and equitable green workforce. So our questions, everything that we've seen not only in Westchester and New York City, but beyond around the country is an amazing number of labor shortages in this high growth area. And the workforce development system, both for adults and the CT system for high school students, seems to be trying to play catch up. And it's, we're hearing the same thing, that HVAC programs and other programs in growth areas are completely full. So how do we the challenge of how do you expand the capacity of these programs to meet the labor market demand, and assure quality and equity. It's a big challenge for the whole system. And another question I wanted to pose on the geothermal side, though, is to what extent are these jobs going to be constantly changing, meaning that there'll be a need for upskilling and retraining, or are these skill levels likely to be pretty constant? You know, and these fields are so dynamic, it just seems you need versatile workers who can be retrained pretty quickly.
Maybe one of our manufacturers who are creating the components that need to be installed could speak to that.
I'll jump in real quick on the heat pump side of things. So, I mean, a lot of the components actually right now are not manufactured in America, but they are assembled in America. So a lot of our workforce is really just application based, really, in working with the skilled trades with an already with a product that's already completed and ready for installation and integration to other building automation control systems and geothermal applications, things like that. But it is a super high growth industry. I've been with Mitsubishi for just about 5 years now, and I mean, I don't know what employee number I was when I came in 5 years ago, but it's tripled and quadrupled, and all signs are pointing towards, you know, this high growth area needing more and more account managers and commercial and residential area managers across the country. Just to give you an idea, you know, I'm one person that covers basically the state of New York. I'm based in Rochester, and you know, I reach out up into the Adirondacks and west of Buffalo down into PA. Obviously down towards Westchester. So there's definitely a need for more people to do this job in this industry. I'll stop there.
Hey, Rachel, I just wanted to, I guess, bring up the fact that, you know, there's been a lot of discussion by, for example, like the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union. There's been concerns around what electrification of heating means for those types of trades, you know, like pipe-oriented trades. The thinking is that if we move away from natural gas, then there's less pipe to put in the ground. And I would say that that's probably sort of a myth, right? Given the fact that, you know, if we are moving to high-performance electric thermal energy systems like geothermal, like thermal energy networks that, you know, are under the street and extend between buildings, for example, that means a lot more pipe than we currently have. So, you know, in the way that the gas network is sort of one way, right? Pipe is, gas is shipped one way to the building. A thermal energy network actually has to be two-way. So you'd send heat to the building, and then, you know, water would come back to wherever that heat source is. So that's at least twice as much pipe. And after having, you know, a just deep discussion with some of the folks that represent these unions, you know, it doesn't take too long for them to realize that this is a pretty major opportunity for organized labor in general, and then for jobs in general. This is a labor intensive process, but it's one that we can't really avoid as a society, right? Because we have to drive high performance thermal energy, especially like when it's really cold outside. And geo is totally the way to do that, just given the way that it operates at very cold temperatures. So it's both like a positive labor, you know, issue, and then also like a very, you know, high performance issue. And I think that those things need to be communicated much more. The opportunity needs to be communicated much more.
Rachel, it's Joe Parsons from Climate Master. Back to that original question, I think that the basic training and technology for geothermal is a skill set that, you know, doesn't. They're all obviously refresher courses, but the technology is still the same technology that's been out there for a multitude of years. Yes, products get more and more efficient, but as they do, they get smarter and smarter as well. So it makes that installation somewhat easier, but that basic skill set is there. So it does offer some opportunities for individuals involved in the technology to make themselves more valuable as they grow more proficient in the technology. But there's room for, as Jeff mentioned, drilling experts, companies that see the opportunity to get involved, on the drilling side of the business. There are designers, system designers. Someone mentioned load calculations as well. It's important for the end user to understand the technology, have a good expectation of what that system should do, how it should perform, and what to expect from a quality geothermal installer. So a lot of opportunity out there. Again, as a manufacturer, we have tried to reach out as best we can so far, especially over 2021, to educate not only consumers about the products, but also educate potential contractors around the business opportunities. I think that's a major component of this, for them to see the potential to profit by getting into a market that's obviously growing. Jeff mentioned the 12% increase. We're pretty confident that that's the case for this industry in this year, and then in coming years we expect it to obviously have to grow substantially faster than that to meet the decarbonization efforts across the country.
Now, one of the things that was mentioned was the requirement of upskilling. Do these skills get outdated? And I just want to circle back to that. In my conversations with our HVAC techs and other HVAC techs that I know, these are skills that are learned when they learned HVAC, and they're transferable. It's not a lot different than installing air conditioning. And I'm just wondering if we were to include the trade unions in this conversation, that it could be helpful for them as well. We've partnered with them recently to have the Plumber Steamfitters Union to come to our classes and to recruit our students. So that is yet maybe another potential partner that we could include in this conversation, so that it's not seen as something different, but really is the same. I know plumber steamfitters who are HVAC techs who do this work. So maybe, I don't know if the group thinks that might be a good idea to include them or not.
Totally agree with that, Tracy.
And if there are any other unions that you would suggest, please feel free to send them my way. And this goes to anyone in the room, let me know who else you think might have been missing from today, and I'll be glad to include them, and maybe we can have a follow-up conversation, or maybe they're more concentrated groups. We'll figure all that out.
I'll only know you, Rachel, but I would share with the group that the Sheet Metal Workers Union, Local 38, it would be a great place to start as well.
Rachel, I have a list of the apprenticeship programs in the county, in Putnam and Westchester County, in my role as the lead education agent for Department of Labor apprenticeships. So I'll send you everything I have.
That sounds excellent. Thank you so much.
So just a nuance to this conversation. I think it's the Steel Workers Union that does cast iron pipe and the pipe associated with piping natural gas. So there's a question, right? So, I mean, I'm not certain of that. I know that that's the case in other states, like in Massachusetts, for example. So like even that is it polyethylene or polypropylene pipe that the yellow pipe that you see them putting in the ground for natural gas piping, that's functionally the same pipe that a district thermal system would use. So I'm wondering if like the Steelworkers Union would also be like a relevant sort of contact, or if outreach is necessary.
Yeah, there's also a union of operating engineers for heavy equipment, which I think could also be helpful in this conversation. So
right, exactly, because as you scale up heat pumps, right, like industrial size heat pumps, I think you're required to have an operating engineer above a certain horsepower. Yeah.
Great. So let's build on that. Before we run out of time, I would like JR and Christina have both had their hands raised. So JR, and then maybe Christina can wrap us up.
Thanks, Rachel. Great conversation. We've been talking about bringing new people into the industry. I was on a call today where there was a concern of existing maintenance people that if a geothermal system was put in, they may not like it. They may resist. So I don't think we should forget about retraining people to make them comfortable with the coming technology.
Thank you. That's such an important point.
Yeah, and I just wanted, I'm like the least, probably the newest person to this field in the room, but on the side of placements, I'm seeing the individuals that are coming out of the trainings and that are ready to go and having to make that match, right, with the employers. So I get really excited about conversations like, like Dan from Robeson, who we've been in contact with, and I'll be reaching out to you guys about in apprenticeship programs, or about whenever an employer says that they're willing to take on somebody new, that's like, I jump on that. But I think to make, and also like internally, because of COVID, we weren't doing so much hands-on training. We have been doing some of that before. So now we're really starting to partner up with, or looking to partner up with, organizations that have labs, for example, inexpensive training, hands-on training, right? Because we are dealing with a lot of priority populations too, or our training where we're trying to keep our training free. So I think like the financial aspect of it and making those things available, where we can afford it, and where it's free for them, and also more of those incentives for the new, NYSERDA has a few of them, right, for the internship and the on-the-job training, and just employers that are willing to do that transfer of knowledge. So I was excited too from, JR, listening to that you notice that you've got to do that transfer. So just I think from our side, more and more, I guess, of that conversation would open more of those opportunities, because we have a lot of folks, but they're fairly green, and they need that hands-on opportunity. So
that I think is a great note to end on. Let's make all of those connections, and thank you all for being here today. It's now officially after 5 o'clock, so I won't take any more of your time, but let's keep in touch and let's keep moving this important work forward. Thank you so much for your role in creating the decarbonized economy.